Hi, this is the Brain Training for Sport Performance. I'm Dr. Martin Emming. In this lecture, we're going to look at how to train the brain to keep focused. Let's take a look at how the brain is involved in either focusing or allowing us to operate on autopilot. There's a system within the brain called the limbic system, and this regulates our emotions and memories and the way that we control our body in an automatic sense. In the limbic system, we find the amygdala and also the hippocampus, and these two work together to really guide our emotional and body responses to stressful situations. In another part of the brain, we have the prefrontal cortex, which you can see here is really in the front of the brain. The prefrontal cortex is really the most advanced part of the brain that we have. It allows us to do things like hold information in working memory. It allows us to make decisions, including those decisions which guide our movement that we might use in sport performance. Importantly, the prefrontal cortex supports conscious positive thoughts because we can actually see competition strain or stress as something that we can use in our favor to enhance our performance. The limbic system, or the amygdala and hippocampus, can produce automatic negative thoughts in the sense that the same stressful situation can now actually lead to negativity and also loss of focus. The brain also has overall autopilot type of behavior. This is called the default network. So the default network is where you're just sort of wandering around, not really thinking about anything specifically, importantly when you're not focused or concentrating. When you're not focused, your brain sort of goes into this default network where it just operates on autopilot. However, when you have your brain engaged in attention, other areas now become active in order to direct that attention. Let's take a look at a schematic here. Let's say that we have a situation where we're facing competitive strain and we have nerves happening, we're experiencing stress. These are part and parcel of being involved in sport. Now from here, the information that we're picking up from the competition or the situation can be relayed, first of all, to the limbic system. Now the limbic system is there to derive emotional responses, particularly those which are going to protect us. And if our brain is sort of wandering and we're in a default network, then we're really allowing the limbic system to have a lot of power and influence to our reactions to the situation. So when we're faced with competition strain or we have nerves, anxiety, or stress, then through the limbic system and operating in the default network can lead to automatic negative thoughts which lead to loss of performance. However, if we allow our prefrontal cortex to remain in control while we are facing competition, strain, nerves, and stress, then we can use this stress to our benefit. We can actually turn the stress around and increase our focus and support higher performance. So the strategy here is how to keep the prefrontal cortex in control and prevent us from defaulting into the default network where we are sort of not focused, not concentrating, and where we're relying on the limbic system to produce our reactions. Well, one way that has been shown to effectively promote prefrontal cortex function is mindfulness training. Mindfulness training engages those processes in the prefrontal cortex which we want to rely on, particularly when we're facing competitive situations. So with mindfulness training, we can actually increase the function of the prefrontal cortex. In this way, we ensure that the prefrontal cortex remains in control to keep us focused and performing at a high level. The prefrontal cortex can also override any ineffective or counterproductive limbic system reactions. In this way, the prefrontal cortex can reduce the possibility of having automatic negative thoughts causing loss of performance, and at the same time increasing our focus to ensure we have high levels of performance. Research studies support the notion that mindfulness training gets the brain to be active in important ways, which in the end supports focus. Here we have an image taken from a study where someone's brain has basically had pictures taken of it while it is doing things. On the left, we see the brain while it's just resting, the mind is wandering, not thinking about anything specifically important. At baseline, the brain is not concentrating. In these images, we see that red represents areas of the brain which are most active, and black represents areas of the brain which are not active at all. So we do see, obviously, while we're at rest, some areas of the brain being active here. But if we compare this level of activity to the brain activity when it's actually engaged in mindfulness training, number one, we see greater regions where there's red or more activity happening. And this is specifically happening in important areas in the prefrontal cortex which drive our focus and concentration. Particularly if we look at activities in the left prefrontal cortex, we see that there's way more brain activity happening during mindfulness training as compared to at rest. Activity in the left prefrontal cortex is associated with better mood, better handling of stressful situations, and also being able to better maintain focus in a given situation. So it's through evidence like this, coming from research studies, that we understand that mindfulness training has quite important and significant impacts in the way that the brain operates. And the notion is that because we are changing the brain during mindfulness training, we can actually get the benefits from this improved brain in activities that we do in our life. And this can include the way that we use our brain in sport competition performance. I hope that you've enjoyed this lecture and found it useful for your own training purposes.